Hello, everyone. I'm Brandon,
And I'm Mom.
and welcome back here to Tansson Talks TV. We're so glad to have you here today.
Yep, we're happy to have you back again.
Yeah, I'm so excited for us to go through a whole new set of shows, and I just can't wait for us to begin, on this one.
Yep, same here.
Yeah, so first of all, how are you doing today, Mom?
Actually, I'm doing fine, Brandon. Thank you for asking.
Of course. Yeah, and so are you able to do us the honors of letting us know what show we'll be watching today?
Yes, Brandon, you and I have talked a little bit, and we have planned the rest of September. So we have here the tub of shows. So we'll see what order they're going to be in. So I'm shaking. And if y'all can see, looks like it is chips. We'll be talking about chips today. So I've just
Awesome.
so I've just got to get my notebook together. I didn't know if you want to provide any background while I get my notes.
Yeah, so to go ahead and provide some background for the show Chips, it is the first drama we are speaking about on Tansson Talks TV, if I remember correctly.
I think it is.
Yeah, and so this show originally started off in 1977 and it ran for 6 seasons. And so and so for me, I have not seen the show. I've seen bits and pieces of episodes. Actually, I've seen a couple episodes here and there, over the past couple years, but like no more than three, I don't think.
All right. And I'm going to age myself a little bit. Brianna, your dad and I watched the whole series before you were born. I think we sat every night and watched every episode, of course, in reruns. Now, it has been a very, very long time since I've seen an episode, but at one point in time, we did sit and watch, I guess on a Saturday night. I don't know. We just watched every episode.
Yeah, and for any of you trying to do math, that was not in 1977.
No, it was not. It was not. If, yes.
But nevertheless, though, as I said, we are excited to get into the show. Start off our very first drama that we are doing on here, and this is a crime drama. And yeah, and I want to go ahead and give it to you. To go ahead and give us our synopsis of episode one.
All right. Once more, we are tackling another pilot episode, and Chips takes place in California. I believe it's Northern California. Or I'm sorry, right around Los Angeles, California. I'm sorry. Um, this particular episode begins with a chase scene. Apparently, there's an auto theft ring that is occurring. Um, Ponch and John, both these are both two police officers, and they typically use a motorcycle in order to do their duties. And so Ponch and John are there and they are going after someone in their motorcycle. But in this particular, and now keep in mind, this is the beginning scene. Ponch does some sort of motorcycle stunt and kind of does something to his bike. But regardless, they weren't able to catch whoever it is they were seeking. And so this is the scene before the theme song. So it was just really a little bit of intro, basically just introducing the fact that they were on motorcycles. The next scene after that occurs at the police station where the sergeant is there, and the sergeant is just really briefing everyone there. Ponch and John kind of come in a little late to this particular briefing, but they're there, and so the sergeant talks about this auto theft ring, and which is the center of this whole episode. And so the sergeant explains that this particular group, there's a group of people who are stealing cars, expensive cars, and they typically only take 6 cars at a time. And then they transport these cars, and I don't know if this at this point in time if they were sure how they were transporting them. They may have mentioned some sort of van or something, but transporting these particular cars to a particular location, and that's all they really kind of knew at that point was that everyone on the team they were to be looking for this particular van or people who are stealing expensive cars. Um, and then after this particular scene, the sergeant kind of pulls Ponch aside, and his name is Frank Poncharella, but he goes by Punch. and kind of mentions that he is actually almost nearing probation. He's just a couple of days away from probation, and that he needs to kind of keep his act clean in order to become a true police officer. Um, and so within about the next scene or so, we see Paunch again, and we're told that he has used his bike as a dirt bike, his motorcycle for doing this, and the sergeant's not very happy about this because he's heard this through the grapevine. Um, and then right after this scene, give a little bit. There's a traffic stop on the freeway that the sergeant has talked about, and so both Paunch and John and some other officers, they do stop at this particular site, at this intersection on the interstate. And this this van has turned over, and there's glue that has fallen in the street. And so the cops are taking care of kind of helping direct the traffic and things like that. And Paunch goes over and speaks to the man with the glue, and he accidentally parks his motorcycle in the glue. And so while all this is going on, um, John, the partner, is actually speaking to two gentlemen who are actually in a truck or a big van per se, and these just happen to be the auto theft ring people, but they don't know at the time, and so they just speak to them, and then John's ready to give him a ticket, and I think eventually Punch does give them a ticket. They were leaking oil from their particular car, before the particular van. And when Punch went back to get his bike became stuck in the glue. So once more, Punch has gets in trouble with his supervisor because, well, I mean, his bike got stuck in glue, and the supervisor does lend him his bike to use while he's on patrol. And then the sergeant does speak to Ponch, and he takes him back so he could take a look at his file. And Ponch has a huge file, and so he asks him questions like, "Is there anything going on with you? Like, why is your file so large?" And there's really not an answer to that. And but John does kind of stick up for his partner and says that he's done some good things on the job. But in the meantime, he really only has about a day or so left on his probation. And so then there after that, um, once more, another accident occurs on the interstate, and so both Punch and John do help. They do help a lady who was in distress in a car, and um, and then the paramedics come and help her. And then a little later, there's some sort of traffic stop later, and they see and they recognize the van. But apparently, this particular van, the license plates had been switched, so it wasn't particularly their van that was being involved with this particular auto chase theft ring, but it's another van that looks very similar to it. And so they are able to kind of narrow down who it is. And then there's a big chase scene somewhere in there. And then, oddly enough, the criminals actually ended up driving themselves to jail accidentally. And that's really kind of how it ends. And then, of course, at the end, the sergeant does say that because they have this big arrest that they did make with these particular people, that Ponch's probation is over, and that so he can become a full police officer, and that he and his partner were also going to receive a commendation because they did help with this particular case.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for the great synopsis.
Oh, you're welcome, Brandon.
Yeah, this definitely was such an interesting watch. And yeah, I mean, I definitely took a bit of notes when going through it. And so going with my notes though, you can see though that in going through this, that Punch and John are somewhat younger officers, and they have a little bit of fun with their expedites.
Yes, they do. They do have a lot of fun with this.
But yeah, and so they are motorcycle cops, and for them, going through their average day, it's like they try to be adventurous with Punch more than John. and I believe you mentioned it too, but they are California Highway Patrol officers.
Yes, they are. They are. I'm sorry, and I didn't thank you for giving that acronym, the definition of the acronym.
Yeah, and they even mention in there that the sergeant calls them, yeah, um they call them CHPs, and so I guess that can help, with the name of the show there. But I thought the episode flowed really smoothly, from start to finish, and like it was kind of fun. And I think we definitely saw like the actual full length version, because I know a lot of time, for TV shows now they sort of cut bits and pieces of shows off.
Yeah, they do, and it was. I thought it was entertaining, Brandon. I don't know about you, but I thought it was very entertaining. And I was actually going to ask you, what surprised you about the show, since you'd only seen bits and pieces over the course of the years.
Ooh, yeah. And first of all, yes, I did find it very entertaining. And I would say for something that surprised me, I would have to say just sort of seeing what their definition of like, like high stakes police, work is. Because I mean, obviously, right now we have, yeah, in modern day, a whole bunch of police shows, but to see one from, from 1977 is definitely interesting. But I love how comedic it is, but at some cases you do get a little bit of seriousness here, here and there. But I think it has aged at least moderately, well, all things considered. And yeah, I mean, I just thought it was such a fun watch.
And yeah, and that's what I noticed too. It was a fun watch. I mean, the time went really quickly for us when we did watch it, because I wrote down that I liked the comedy in the show. Um, I liked that it was not violent, like some of the shows that are out now. Um, And then one of the things that kind of stood out for me also was the end scene with the credits. I know we kind of talk about theme songs and things like that, but at the end of this show, which is not typical, I don't think, in the 70s per se, um, whereas they had a true end scene as the song was going at the end. And so that for me was kind of fun to watch, and it kept with the comedy at the same time.
Yeah, and it sort of had its own like plot with it too, because it was, the officers going after this one, like apparently like drunk driver, driving through, and it ended up being a like older lady judge who happens to be like a relative of like the police chief.
Yeah, yes. So it did end on a comic relief, and it also involved Paunch, out of all people, to have this happen to.
Yeah, but I thought that was definitely fun, a fun addition. But I mean, but even with having dealt with some of the other shows, well, the early '80s shows we watch, is that we've actually seen shows that the credits start, but then it pauses and lets the show keep playing. So maybe there actually was a sort of like a tidbit of the time that I think that for most modern shows, at least in the TV edit, just sort of cut out. So I'm glad that we were at least able to see it in its entirety.
Yeah, I was happy to see that too.
But yeah, and speaking of that, even with going through the theme song of it, and I'll let you give your thoughts about that in a moment,
Hmm.
but the one for at least this episode was sort of going in the flow of the dialogue that I had already gone through, and so like they were talking through it a little, but you could see at least the resemblance of the theme song. But speaking of that, what did you think of the theme song for this pilot episode?
I love the theme song for this show. I've always loved the theme song, The Chips. I know there aren't any words per se, but it's a very nice, just kind of catchy tune. I think you mentioned for this first episode that you noticed that it was much, much longer. You were surprised how long it was. And so actually, it took me a little off guard too, because I didn't quite realize, especially for only having two people credited at the beginning, how long I mean, more people were credited, but only two people who had actually showed their faces, with the credits. Um, for being on the show, it was very long, and but I give it like an 8.5, just because it is kind of catchy. You know the theme, you can kind of shake your head to it while it's going on.
That is quite true. And yeah, and I completely agree with that. And and something I guess I noticed with the show too, especially early on, is not just how much, you know, like the late 1970s, action you have going on, especially in the comedic stuff, like with Punch driving into a whole bunch of glue, and the bad guys literally driving themselves to the jail. But I was actually surprised a bit with how much dialogue there was, especially like at the very beginning of the episode, because half of it, at least early, like I said early on, was truly dialogue between John and Punch. And so I don't know. I guess I wasn't expecting that much dialogue.
I know. It was nice that they kind of established a relationship kind of pretty early. And something also I found comedic that's not quite doesn't quite happen in the cop shows now is that the villains per se were friendly and they just seem kind of goofy altogether, you know.
Yeah, like they pulled over. I mean, even when the officers were literally on them and had figured out all the clues and everything, like they just kept going on with their day. And I'm sure even if they would have caught them, they would have probably been like, "Oh well," they.
Yeah. Yeah, they even left the people who weren't criminals alone while they were checking out the car, which, of course, doesn't happen today. But I had a question for you also.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Were there other shows that this kind of reminded you of when you watched Chips?
I would say that with the type of funny, slash, um, yeah, the funny dialogue slash the fun, adventures of a police officer, that actually reminds me a little bit of TJ Hooker,
Mm-hmm.
another show that we watch, I believe, from the 1980s. And so,
Hmm.
which you also had, recently, a couple years ago, seen all the way through, and I saw like a couple episodes here and there.
Yep. Yep. And that was my thought too. It reminded me of that too. It reminded me a little bit of The Rookie too, and only in the sense of the training portions of it. It reminded me of that too. But of course, The Rookie's
Yeah,
a little bit more serious than this show.
yeah, and something I guess, and speaking of that, because we do start, well, at some point early on in the episode, you do see, the everyone being debriefed early on. And so something I noticed, which I guess is very 1977, is that some of the officers are also smoking in the room, which
Mm.
obviously would not be happening today.
Yes, I noticed that too. Yes.
But yeah, but I mean, but that's like actually like a small background detail because it wasn't too obvious. You sort of would have had to be like being paying close attention to it, so it doesn't stand out in the episode. But I mean, you can notice it.
Yeah, and actually, I didn't notice it, so that's great eyes for you that you saw that.
But yeah, but is there anything else that you want to note for this episode right here?
No, like I said, I was just surprised at really the comedic relief that they did have on this particular episode. I didn't know because it's going to go all the way through per se the episode because I do know in watching Chips that it is serious, but yet it kind of does have its lighthearted, light moments. And so I didn't know that this episode was going to be all the way through that way. And then it was just, the hour did not seem to take to me feel like an hour, like some shows.
Yeah, and I'm just going through some of the notes I wrote down here, and so I did note, just some fun things I noticed. Like John mentions to the bad guys that he happens to have a hobby in like understanding accents, to figure out where these people are from.
Yeah, and he was just referring to what part of California that they're from.
Yeah, and also, another thing I noted, which is also, I guess, a interesting part of its time, is when Punch is helping to rescue this one girl out of her car, that he's also like flirting with her.
Yeah, which is of course not allowed. Obviously not allowed.
Yeah, so that's definitely interesting. But I love the chase music, from where the two of them are going after the bad guys, and yeah, and actually like the sound, the sound effects all the way through. I think just really helps, empower the experience of watching this episode.
Yep, it does.
But yeah, but I guess for one of our wrapping up questions of the, would you watch this again, having seen this first episode?
Oh yeah, I know I'd watch it again since I kind of sat through and watched it just a few years ago. Um, but yes, I would watch it again. And I would go through and watch basically all the episodes again because it has been quite a while since I've seen them.
Yeah, and I would definitely, watch them, again for sure as one of the many many shows that I need to add to to my list among everything. But yes, but I am looking forward to pressing record on some more shows and watching some more and somewhere between graduate school and podcasting. But
Yes, yeah, you've got a busy thing, a lot of things that you do, Brad.
but like I said, I really enjoyed this, and if you all want to see some more drama shows for us to do or anything else, definitely let us know in the comments.
Yeah, please, anything you'd like for us to watch or to review, please just put in the comments for us so we can take a look at.
Yeah, you can add it to that nice bin right there.
I sure can. Yes.
But yeah, but until next time, have a wonderful day, everyone, and we look forward to seeing you all next week.
All right, have a great day. Bye bye.